I firmly believe that talking about depression does not need to be depressing, although it usually is. Talking about recovery, on the other hand, is not depressing. It can inspire and motivate. Recovery is amazing. It is the way you escape from the hell of depression and get back to living your life in the real world instead of the world that depression has created in your mind. Depression lies to you. It controls your thoughts until you believe things that are simply not true. It distorts things, it bends reality, it ensures that your perspective is as negative as it can be. This podcast is designed to give you some ideas about how to recover from your depression, how to wrestle back control of your thoughts, how to combat whatever your depression is throwing at you. But I am realistic. I know these words probably won't make you feel much better, but they might, and that's good enough for me. So, thanks for listening. In my experience, the most important moment in recovery from mental illness is the moment you decide to fight that illness. The beginning, the first step. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Recovering from a mental illness is a step-by-step process, and those steps need to be small at first. There are no shortcuts, no magic wand. Mental illness cannot be cured, but it can be managed successfully. That's what recovery is about. Getting to a stage where you're not only recovering from your illness, but you are in control of it. What I have learned recovering from depression is that either you control your illness or it controls you. I like imagining that's why Winston Churchill called his depression his black dog. He identified his illness as something other than himself. Your mental illness is something other than yourself. Depression feeds you negative thoughts, many of which are completely untrue. Depression makes you feel worthless and convinces you that the way you feel when you are severely depressed is the way you are always going to feel. Nothing could be further from the truth. You can recover, you will recover, because the fact that your illness is something other than you is the precise reason you can conquer it. But it's like climbing a mountain you don't want to climb. It is hard. It is step by step. You will need help, but that help can only do so much. The rest is on you. It has got to come from you. You've got to work at it, because whether we like it or not, having a mental illness is an everyday battle. Some days are much better than others, but if you decide to fight your illness, then the good news is that you are halfway there already. Forget the idea that you are alone. 1 in 4 people in the UK have a mental illness. Around 350 million people around the world have depression. Forget the idea that you are worthless because you have a mental illness. Winston Churchill was such a great wartime leader, not in spite of his depression, but because of it. Abraham Lincoln, who brought about the abolition of slavery in America, also had severe depression. Both these men knew how to conquer dark forces because they had been to dark places in their minds many times before. They could see how bad things could get, and they knew how to fight and overcome extremely negative forces. Michelangelo had depression. Florence Nightingale had depression. Ernest Hemingway, Charles Dickens, Buzz Aldrin, Van Gogh all had depression. Your illness does not mean that you are not going to have a good life one day. Far from it. It just means that right now, at this moment in time, if you are severely depressed, if you have clinical depression, you have to climb that mountain. Not a physical mountain, obviously, although that would be great, but a mountain in your own mind, a mental mountain. The good news is, if you climb this mountain, you will begin to feel so much better than you do right now. The bad news is, if you don't want to do it, you have no choice. You have to do it. You've got to make this journey, whether you like it or not. Where you want to be, where you need to be, is on the other side of that mountain. You cannot go around, you have to go up, onwards and upwards. You cannot think your way out of depression. Depression ensures that your perspective on things is as negative as it can be, and it keeps a tight grip on your brain, swallowing up any positive thoughts quicker than a black hole swallows starlight. The good news is, there are so many ways to make things better, whether it be a psychiatrist giving you the right medication, or whether it is talking to someone, or whether it is exercise, or countless other things. One of the reasons that recovery from depression is so hard is that what helps you to recover, the things that make you feel better, are exactly the things that you do not feel like doing when you are ill. Sometimes it's more than not feeling like doing it. Sometimes you are desperate not to do things, small things, things that most people do as second nature. You will feel lonely, but remember that many people feel lonely even when they are surrounded by people. You will probably isolate yourself. You will probably wonder, why me? But you need to spend as little time as possible feeling sorry for yourself. Not just because it is a complete waste of time, but because it is extremely negative and destructive to yourself and to those around you. Don't be a victim, be a survivor. If you are deeply depressed, then it is all about survival at first. After that comes the recovery. If you have a mental illness, then you are going to need help. You need people who can guide you along the path that you are taking. The bottom line is, it is very difficult to look after someone else if you are not looking after yourself. You need to be the one looking after yourself. If you have a mental illness, then you are going to need help. You need people who can guide you along the path that you are taking. The bottom line is, it is very difficult to look after someone else if you are not looking after yourself. You need to be the one looking after yourself. Don't get too frustrated if you can't describe your depression, because nobody else can either. Depression is almost impossible to describe to someone who has never had it. But psychiatrists and nurses and support workers and community psychiatric nurses know how to deal with mental illness. That is what they are trained to do, and they can help you immensely if you need that help. Friends and family can be amazing if you talk to them about what is going on. People can be very understanding if you give them a chance. It's not like it used to be. We are fortunate in the UK to have people like Stephen Fry, Ruby Wax, Robbie Williams and Alistair Campbell, who have all shared their stories about having depression to get the word out there and to increase understanding about mental illness. These people have done incredible things with their lives. You can too. You absolutely can. Your mind can get healthier. You can become happier in yourself. You can feel better about yourself. The good times, and there will be good times, however impossible that may seem right now, will be all the sweeter because of what you've been through. The really good news is that when you recover, when you have climbed that mountain, you will emerge from the hell on earth that we call depression stronger and more able to deal with life's challenges. Challenges that everybody has to face, whether they have mental health problems or not. People without mental health problems have a choice about whether to look after themselves or not. They can choose whether to exercise or eat right. Like I said, if you have a mental illness, you do not have that choice. You have to look after yourself, because that is how you will recover, step by step, a little more each time. It is difficult, but it can be incredibly rewarding. You will make mistakes, that's fine. Climbing this particular mountain is going to be 3 steps forward, 1 step back. But all the greats made mistakes, and they learned from those mistakes. You need to learn from your mistakes, because as they say, success is buried in the garden of failure. You do not need to feel ashamed of yourself for having a mental illness. It's an illness. It's not your fault that you have an illness. Remember, it is something other than yourself. It affects you, but it is not who you are as a person. So use everything you've got to take that first step on your journey to recovery. That will be the hardest step, the first one. It will be eventually much easier after that. You need to be working out how your depression affects your mind and body, because it is different for everybody. You then need to take steps to reduce those effects. Depression can make you feel very tired and lethargic. Exercise can have the opposite effect. Depression isolates you. It can make you feel lonely. Socializing and talking to people can have the opposite effect. Depression comes from a chemical imbalance in the brain. Medication can reduce that imbalance and make your moods more stable. Depression gives you an overwhelmingly negative perspective. You compare yourself to others and you always come out worse off. But it's not about what you're looking at. It's about how you look at it. Don't compare yourself to those who have more than you. Compare yourselves to those who have less than you. Whatever you do, don't try to brush depression and mental illness under the carpet. If that worked, carpet companies would be bigger than Amazon. Depression and any mental illness needs to be brought out into the open with friends, with family, and with doctors. It's not like it used to be not that long ago. People are now talking about mental illness in the media more than ever before. There is increased awareness and understanding about mental illness, but there is still a stigma attached to it, and that stigma is very damaging because it prevents people from getting the help that they need. If you are severely depressed, and especially if you are feeling suicidal, you need to know that things will get better and you will experience moments in your life that are beautiful. It is just that you cannot see that because your depression won't let you see it. You can feel like a bit of an outcast if you have a mental illness. I used to think to myself, there's a saying where I come from, but nobody will tell me what it is. Nothing is right when you have depression. Everything is wrong. But you can put it right. You have to put it right. Remember, small steps, and the better you look after your mind and body, the better you will start to feel. Hope that helps in some way. See you next time. P.S. To have a healthy mind, you need to learn the difference between fantasy and reality. You need to know the difference between what is real and not real. It is all about perspective. It's how you look at things. Your perspective can change, which means you can change, and change is what recovery is all about. Remember, never, never, never give up.